Well, hello there. This is Tamil. Today I wanted to talk about how to draw vehicles. This is going to be a messy lecture, so bear with me. And this entire slide, the first one that I made, is literally about the fact that drawing vehicles or anything mecha, it is hard. And the reason being it's hard is because, first of all, some people spend their entire art careers just drawing cars or just drawing vehicles or whatever it might be. It's a special category in art that is very separate, and some people dedicate years and years just doing that. It's going to suck, and that's okay because you can keep pushing knowing that that's just part of the process. Because if you're starting out and you think you draw pretty decent, if you look at these, the old ones that I had, they look pretty crappy. But back then, I was able to draw relatively okay other things. So like faces or maybe landscapes, anything organic, any like a flower, whatever it might be, I was okay with it. And when I started drawing vehicles and trying to learn it, I was so off and I was so just terrible at it. I got really discouraged, which is normal. What I'm trying to say here is it's really hard and you should keep pushing, because if you don't, then you're not gonna get better. It's very simple thought, but I think when it comes to this specific topic, it's especially important because some people quit before they even try to get the basics down, and it takes a lot of time to get the basics. We're gonna get into it later. This is latest vehicles that I've made. You're going to see that they're a lot better than the ones that were before. I'm not sure what the time frame is because I drew these recent, but these ones were pretty old. Maybe a year and a half. But the thing is, I wasn't practicing vehicles specifically all this time. I wasn't drawing vehicles for a year. Vehicles that you see now are mostly due to the fact that I was practicing very technical drawings for the past 3 to 4 months. Heavy, intense learning of sketching like this for about 2-3 months. General drawing for about a year. So that is approximate age difference between the two pictures. And this is just an example for you so you can see like, oh, okay, so if I'm drawing this every day and I'm practicing every day, this is gonna be way longer than a week or 2 weeks. So that was me back in the day, and I was like, why is it so hard? And so let's just get into why it might be so hard. And the reason why it's so hard is because perspective is one of the art fundamentals that is very separate. If you have, for example, light, and it's an art fundamental, you have to learn light. How does it reflect? How does it affect objects, right? There are things that you can learn, and there are things that are intuitive. If you, say, have a red apple, it's in a blue room with blue light and blue table, you're going to think, okay, well, maybe it's a little bit of purple, because if you mix red and blue, it's probably purple. And you can kind of adjust that depending on the style you're going for. Let's say you're going for impressionism or very abstract art. You can change a lot of colors and it still will look decently. Okay, it's going to look stylized. But with perspective, you still can stylize, but it's so technical that every single time you make a mistake, you're going to see more of it. You're going to recognize more things in it that is wrong. The reason being is because it's a technical skill. You have to learn specific rules that apply to perspective before you can get into anything else. The thing is, you have 2 boxes. For example, I drew 2 boxes, 2 cubes. One is alright and it has okay perspective, and the other one has just a little bit off, something is different. And you can see mistakes right here, you can see mistakes right here. That's fine. Like, this cube is okay. If you're drawing 1 cube, this is fine. But if you draw 2 more cubes that are in the same perspective and you're trying to replicate the same perspective, you have 4 cubes that are all a little bit different because they're like a slight mistake in them. You're gonna notice even more because it's next to these imperfect cubes. You need to learn how to make proper shapes and perspectives so that everything else aligns together. Another reason why it feels off is because everything you see in your life is in perspective. Every building, every car, every pen that you held, every mouse that you touched, every laptop that you used, everything is in perspective, and there's not much mistakes in nature in terms of perspective. And so for you and for your brain, it feels off because you are trained to see the perspective at all times in proper ways. The only time when perspective is off might be photography, when the lens distortion is changing the perspective. But even then, if you're using anything like a fish lens or whatever it might be, the perspective still aligns together at the end of the day. So let's go over the very basics of what you could learn to draw vehicles. This is even before you start drawing them. This is way before. So the first thing I want to say is do not do scratchy lines like that, and it's preferred to do clean art like this. If you're painting, it's dependent on the style you're going for. It could be stylistic choice, it could be maybe you're trying to add texture to it or whatever it might be. It's your choice. But with anything vehicle related or perspective, it is very important to keep your lines clean. And for the reason being is if you have a cube, let's say like this, it has about 11 lines, right? And if you do all of these with the same way like that, with scratchy lines, you're gonna have not 11 lines, you're going to have 550 lines, and you're not gonna see the cube anymore. It's gonna look messy, and you're not going to see the shape of it. You're not gonna see where am I drawing, what am I doing. So in order to make perspective work, you need to do clean art, and we'll get into supplies later as well. So as we know, there are things that are consisted of simple shapes and simple forms. And the two things you need to know how to draw perfectly from any angle at any perspective is a cylinder and a cube. And these two things, you need to learn them regardless of where you're going, but especially if you're going to draw vehicles or anything perspective related. You need to draw cubes because most industrial art is consisted within a cube, and cylinders are mostly for wheels and anything like that related that is spherical. So let's start with the fact that you need a reference, right? You need to do reference before you can start painting blindly, completely. There are people who can draw from the top of their head, but if you're starting out, you need reference. And this is my advice when you need to find what kind of reference for vehicles or anything else like that. Try to find old stuff. Do not go for new things that are industrial, and go for the very old. Whatever is before like 1990s, 2000s is better. Reason being is all of these are very slick. They have very subtle curves and very subtle angles. Even right now, if you have the perspective ruler and you have everything in hand, it is hard to deconstruct that object. But older things like this, for example, is very blocky, and the only thing you need to worry about is drawing wheels properly and other blocks that come together later. So just as a reminder, do not look for new cars, because I also took a 3D modeling class. Even people who were not drawing them, they were just 3D modeling them. It was just super hard. It was hard for them. It was hard for all the students, no matter what level you were. It's one of the reasons because cars are made by designers that are super talented. They're drawing cars for 20 years, 10 years, and they make a car once a year, once in 2 years, whatever it might be. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of technology to create something so slick like a sport car or anything new. So that's why I recommend you do not go for new, just go for old to reference pictures. If it gets older and older, that's better. Just whatever is black and white and way back in the days, and it's going to look and feel better for drawing because you can actually deconstruct it. So what do you use to practice this? Well, first of all, I want to say that you should not be using drawing tablets that are like this. I have one right now. Personally, I prefer these over these. I like the ones that you don't look at a screen. I am comfortable with it. And even I'm telling you, if you're going to practice vehicles, do not use these, because the hand coordination is probably one of the most important things when it comes to perspective and training perspective. Sure, you can use a ruler at all times, but even then it's not going to teach you as much as you should be learning. So maybe if you have a screen one, maybe you can use that one. But I recommend you starting out or using a CSP at the same time. So start out with pencil and paper. I literally have hundreds and hundreds of old drawings that are on paper, because the hand coordination and the feel of it just you can't beat it, right? And I've been drawing on pen and ink and pencil on paper for almost like forever, and to this day, if I'm going to do like a technical drawing of like a car or whatever it might be, I will still use this over a professional tablet. I have an iPad Pro and I have a Wacom, I think, that is 16 inches, which is pretty big. And even then, I still would use these to start my perspective and my drawing, because it doesn't get better than that. Get like the cheapest pen or ink, whatever you might find. Don't think about the fact that you need to like all these fancy tools. There are many people on YouTube that show that you can draw like the perfect car with just simple pen and pencil, and as well as using CSP rulers. The thing is, CSP has amazing rule and guide system, and so it might help you to see mistakes and see how you should be drawing properly without sacrificing your time. So you can use the paper, maybe a tablet, and CSP rulers all at the same time to practice and see what you can do and what you're not getting. Let's just do a little demonstration, just a very small one, on drawing cubes and drawing cylinders. So for the cube, I'm just going to freehand it. And I drew a lot of cubes. I took a course, and I'll link it later. It's called Drawbox. I drew a lot of them. I drew like almost like 250 of them, and that was still not enough. Like, I spent so much time trying to draw cubes, and it just takes practice, and it takes how properly construct a cube and stuff like that. So don't expect to succeed at it immediately, and just keep practicing. First off, I'm just gonna start with the first line like this, and I'm using like a regular tablet, which is why I'm telling you don't use them. But let's just say I'm drawing the cube like this, and this is going to be my perspective line, right? This is going to be all the way here somewhere, going all the way down there, and it's going to converge with this one. And so these are going to be connected. There you go. So now I have one of the lines. Great, so now I have one side. So the other thing is that I just have to do this for the opposite side as well. And I'm going to use this. So this is a cube. Messed up a little bit because this first, like the front line and the back line, they align a bit. So it looks a little bit weird, but relatively speaking, this is not a terrible cube. This is okay perspective. And the reason why you need to learn how to draw a cube is because if you know how to draw a cube, then you can start practicing cylinders. So in order to draw a cylinder, you need to connect the cube to another side right here. So I drew lines that cross it in the middle, and these right here are going to be touching lines. Circle, or it should touch right here, right here, right here, and right here, and everything else has to be curved over here. And like that, you can create a sphere. And this is going to be a little bit terrible because I'm not using any rulers. And let's just try and do this. Yeah, that's close enough. It's not ideal, but I can go ahead and do Control T and see where I made the mistake and put it in the right perspective. So I made the sphere inside of this, and now you do the same thing with the back of it. So now I have two spheres inside this cube, and in the middle, right here, if you connect these, this is going to be the axis line, which is basically where the cylinder is going to face. And once you connect the two spheres, this is going to be the cylinder that you were looking for inside of that cube. And so this is pretty good. And if you make half of this, right? If I made half of this cube into the cylinder, same way, I just divide it in half, and I would just make the same X, and I would create the sphere. And you see, this is why I'm telling you that creating perfect lines is very important, because I mostly they look okay, and they don't like there's no jaggeds or anything like that. And even that right now, it feels weird and very messy, and I don't know what I can do to fix it. And all you can do is lower opacity and try to figure out and color code it, and it's still gonna be a mess a little bit. So this is the sphere, and I just made another one inside, and there you go, you have your wheel. So this is the wheel, and if I make another one following the same direction, right? If I create another cube right here like that, and I do the same thing for everything, now I have two cylinders and another one right here, and then I just do this, and now I have a start of a car, so I can build on top of this. It takes forever. It takes forever, I know, but this is the proper way to create this. And you also need to do measurements, and I'll show a little bit of that later. But this is the freehanding box, and then you can draw inside of that. So let's use CSP rulers in order to shorten the time, and so you can maybe see the mistakes that I made right here. In order to make perspective, you need to go into ruler and create perspective ruler. You can again watch my video that on perspective and perspective tools. It's very goes into more depth, and you can learn a lot from it. So there you go. I made kind of like a similar thing, and now I can create the box. So I made the cube, and now I can just do this. And the other thing is also you can use ellipse to your advantage. If you have your perspective on, you can use ellipse. And right here, you can find in figure ellipse, and you can set it to either full colored one or just a line. And now I can just create one right here, and I drag it all the way down. And now it's going to look for the perspective. I let go and it's going to look for which perspective I'm talking about, like the left one or the right one. And as you hover over your tablet, it's going to try to align it to either one. So let's make another one to the other side. And so as you can see, the more angled it is, the more far the thing is, the different angle you get for the cylinder. In theory, this is a perfect cylinder. This is almost perfect cylinder that you can make using CSP. And you can see that this aligns pretty well and the cube is almost perfect, and it still looks a little bit distorted, right? Well, it doesn't look exactly distorted, but it definitely looks a little bit off if you're not thinking about the fact that these vanishing points are very close. So this is how you use Clip Studio Paint ruler in order to create the perfect cylinder. And you can do the same thing with a cube. You can see the rectangular tool, and you can use these in order to help you learn how to draw vehicles. So here's some additional tips that you can also think about as you draw. I recommend you do construction, which is basically drawing things through. Just doing the outline like this is not going to give you a lot of learning material, especially if you're drawing anything heavy in perspective, because you need to align the things in the future in order to fact check you. So like we did before, the back wheel has to align with the front wheel, and the two that you see and the two that you don't see have to align perfectly or close enough so that you can actually see, oh, okay, so this is the proportion. Because if you don't have them aligned, they're not going to give you the proper perspective and proper measurements for you to work off of. Another tip is no painting. I know it might be very discouraging that you can't render your beautiful car or beautiful spaceship, but I recommend you focus on line and focus on proper perspective first. And the other thing is that most cars are made of metal, and metal reflects a lot of light, and so the shape and form doesn't look exactly like it should. It looks a little bit distorted because it reflects all this light and has all these shiny parts, and so you don't know which one is which, especially if you're starting out. Painting it and rendering it and doing shading and lighting, it's very complicated unless you know what the form is, and in order to do the form you first have to know how to construct it. So these are additional tips. This is going to be a nice exercise that I used to do, and in short, you create any plane like this. So make a square or a rectangle to the best of your ability in any perspective that you want, and inside of that divide it with X, find the middle, create another X, and try to do a sphere inside of it so you can see if you can align it properly. And I recommend doing these on paper. And I did these like, I don't know, like 10 pages or so of just these. And it really depends on what you're going for. And if you just want to dip into it just a little bit, you can do like a 1 page or 2. If you want to get like super heavy with vehicle drawings, you can do more. This is another example of practicing spheres and circles. The whole exercise is you create this kind of like a rectangle, and inside of that rectangle you try to draw circles so that they align perfectly, like, because you're trying to touch these and not touch these, and this is another practice to do that. This is good that it's touching, and this is not good that it's not touching. And don't forget that you can aim first. So I aim and then I draw. I don't just draw and I try to fix it later as you go. You can just try to see if you're doing it right, and then you draw on top of that. Another one is just selecting 2 points. So this is another one for straight lines. And you can select 2 points and you can aim, and then you can draw like maybe 5 or 10 of these in the same way, and you're trying to align them perfectly. So this is kind of another exercise that I used to do as well. And in order to help you draw vehicles, think about what is the proportion of the vehicle. A lot of vehicles have different proportions, and you want to try to divide it in your head or on paper if you're starting out. So this one that I was trying to draw has wheels, right? And I try to use wheels as people use head measurements when they draw people. And on the side, it's pretty short car. It's like a small car. It's a compact. So I try to think, okay, how many wheels can it fit? And in the middle, if you count that, and outside, you can count like about 3 wheels, right? And then I do the box and I try to divide it in 3. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is where the wheel is going to start, and this is the wheel is going to start. Another one is you do front drawing as well. You can see that there are about 5 wheels, and I think I just went too far, and I actually had to cut off all this part, and I had to redraw from scratch because this was too long, and it's still too long. I think this is not aligning properly, even though this is definitely about 5 of wheels, maybe 4. So I should have done way less. And the height is about 3 wheels and a little bit right here. So doing pre-proportion of the vehicle, you can find vehicles in different angles, or you can just buy like a small toy car to practice more, and you can measure it with a ruler. So these are the resources that I used when I was trying to learn it for all my art career, and these 2 are like for sure, like everyone recommends these so much, and they're so crucial and important. Drawbox is a 2D course, and it is completely free. You can watch all the videos and you can see all the curriculum. It's almost a university level course. You can go ahead and do these. The other one is Scott Robertson, How to Draw. If you Google it, you can find the exact book. It has like a very complex vehicle in it. He also goes into perspective and how to draw vehicles and how to do them almost freehand, and how can you eyeball some of the perspective without messing up too much. So both of these were helping me so much when I was starting out, and I highly recommend doing these as well. So I hope this video helped you in some way, and after this is going to play more time-lapse things that I was drawing recently, and I hope you can learn from that as well. And it's a super complex topic, so sorry if it feels like I barely covered anything, but this is kind of like a lot to take in. So you can watch the video multiple times, check out these, check out my time lapses and how I work, try to practice cubes, cylinders, and build on top of cars, and like take a picture and try to draw on top of the image and see what the construction is like and all of those things. It's really hard, and I hope this was helpful, and happy painting.